everyone, and welcome to Randy's Roundtable from the train shed at Union Station. It's great to have you with us. Always great to talk to Blues alumni with us today from 101 ESPN. One of my colleagues, Jamie Rivers, good to see you.
Andy, nice to see you too.
And Bruce Affleck, who has been with the Blues for the better part of 45 years, 74, 75, and you've been around pretty much ever since. You haven't left much, have you?
Not too much. I guess it was 84 to 87 I was gone. So other than that, been here.
And it's amazing. We were talking before we started recording this, what growth we've experienced, and especially from the time you started, Bruce, in Blues alumni, and how many Blues players have decided to stay here in St. Louis.
Yeah, it's really grown, and we would give a lot of credit to Mike Shanahan, former owner. He helped us get started back in 1988. Nice donation he made to us. And he's the one who said, you guys have got to get back to the community that was so good to you. And that's how it got started, and it's just kind of grown. And fortunately, the players that have come in here like to stay in St. Louis. They enjoy the city, so a number of them stayed around. What
was it like when you arrived on the scene and you're a rookie and Wayne Gretzky's on the team?
Yeah, well, Gretz was a little nervous to play with me. I know that. We talked about it a few times. No, it was awesome. Having a guy, first of all, I remember my first training camp coming in 1993. It was the flood of 93.
Yeah.
And so a kid from Ottawa, I didn't really know where St. Louis was. I mean, I knew, but not really. So we're flying in, I'm like, St. Louis is an island? Because there's so much water surrounding it at the time, and I had no idea. But I walk in the locker room the first day, and you've got Brett Hull, you've got Brendan Shanahan, you've got some pretty big names walking around. I was a little starstruck, for sure, but then to add Wayne Gretzky as the season went on, I mean, it was cool. And Wayne he's such an awesome dude. You walk up, and I remember my first day, you want to go introduce yourself. I mean, I don't know how many times I scored a goal as Wayne Gretzky on the backyard rink at home, or just pretending, or the jersey tucked, thinking I'm cool like Wayne. And so I'm making my way over, and he's just sitting there reading his paper, and it's almost like, man, there he is. Look that's Wayne Gretzky. Walk over, extend the hand, say, hey, Jamie Rivers, nice to meet you. And he jumps up right away and he's like, hey, Wayne, nice to meet you. I'm like, yeah, no kidding. I kind of know who you are, But he was great. He knew who I was, which was kind of shocking. And he referenced some of my junior stuff, like quickly, right away. He said, oh, you had a great junior career and all, which was amazing because cool. I'm like, why does he know about me? And then to watch him just kind of every day operate, and him and Holly were such great friends, and still are great friends. It was a real treat. I just kind of sat back and enjoyed all of that and absorbed. I was a sponge.
Yeah, and for those of us that have been around a while and watched the franchise, that was 25 years ago now that Gretzky was here for those couple of months, but that was an amazing couple of months.
Oh, Randy, I was in sales at the time, and you become a very good salesperson when you got guys like Hull and Gretzky. And he came in, and unfortunately, we didn't have many tickets left for the remaining games. People were all upset because they couldn't come and see Wayne Gretzky. Single seats. There wasn't a seat left in the building.
Jamie talks about walking into a room with multiple Hall of Famers. I mean, heck, they could have fielded a group with Fuhrer, Pronger, McInnes, Glenn Anderson, Gretzky, Hull. Could have put a half dozen Hall of Famers on the ice at one time. You walk into a situation where you've got, and you're one of them, 14 players that are age 22 or younger. What was that like?
Well, we really didn't realize it. Back then it was a totally different story as far as media and everything else like that, right? But that was the year that Bernie Federko and Brian Sutter and Rick Bourbonnais came up. And I was the 22-year-old. Hess was 21 and the others were 20. I was mentioning that there's a picture of a power play. The five of us were on the ice, and it had to be one of the youngest power plays ever in the league at the time. And but it was great. We had the veterans and then the young guys. We really didn't have that core in the middle that you need. We had Plager and Berenson and things like that. But it was a great experience, and seeing Bernie and them come up. And that's a trivia question. The kid line, everybody thinks it was Wayne Babbage, right. And it wasn't. It was Bourbonnais.
Right. So you guys were both in the Blues organization for a good portion of the careers of Kelly Chase and Brett Hull together. That must have been something. Bruce, you were here when Hully arrived on the scene, and then Chaser a couple of years later. What stands out? What crazy Blues Hull Chase memories stand out for you that you can tell here?
Exactly.
I got to qualify this, right?
Yes.
Well, Hull Chase or just Chase. They were two peas in a pod together. The one time where they stole Bob Berry's car and took it over to the east side and got back a little late. And Bob's trying to find out where his car is, and I can't tell much of the rest of the story, but it's.
So he was the head coach at the time.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Those are epic guys. How about you?
Oh man.
He played with them.
Yeah, I played with both of those guys, and yeah, the stories are endless. And then I had the opportunity again to play with Holly in Detroit, and it's just so many little things that have happened over the course of the years. But Holly's just such a unique personality, and I think sometimes it gets misunderstood. And now BA, you know him really well too, and he's messing with people a lot, but it comes across as maybe I don't know, being a little bit snarky or whatnot. And sometimes even with the media, and Randy, you can speak to this because you dealt with it on the media side. Holly was that way too.
Golden.
And he'd walk away and kind of wink at you and be like, look at that, like just kind of messing with people. So Holly was a lot of fun, day in and day out. And he was a guy that was extremely dedicated to the game. He really was. Like, he had a good time, there's no doubt. But he had a passion for being a great hockey player. Holly always had a thing too for sticks, right? Holly's stick is awful looking, first of all. Let's get that straight. But he thinks it's amazing. But Chaser thinks it's amazing too, because Chaser took the exact same stick. Right?
I wonder why.
I'm like, yeah, it didn't work the same for Chaser. It's crazy how that is. But Holly would come in, and I was a young guy, and he'd come over, and he'd always look at the new guys' sticks. And no matter what it looked like, he always had the same reaction. He'd go over and pick it up and stand it beside him to see how long the stick was, and he'd flex it, look at the curve, and then he'd just throw it on the ground in disgust and walk away. And I remember being a young kid, I go, what? What's wrong with it? He's like, really? Really? No wonder you go off the glass and out. I'm like, really? So I had Brett mess with my stick a few times and change it and whatnot. And you know what? It seemed to work pretty good. But my favorite one of all time is Pierre Turgeon, which was a big trade for the St. Louis Blues. And Turge, who had a very successful career, I believe he's a point-a-game guy his entire career. And he comes in from Montreal. And Holly, first thing he does, he's got his coffee, his flip-flops, and he kind of waltzes over to Turge and puts his coffee down and picks up Pierre's stick and does the same thing, sees how long it is, flexes it, looks at the curve and goes, "Shah," and throws it down. And Turge, French guy, super nice guy, one of the classiest guys ever. And he's like, what's wrong, And Holly goes, you must be a lot better than I think if you can play with that thing. And Turge was so confused, and Holly walks out of the room, and that's a moment where Holly's giggling to himself and laughing with the guys that know him, but Turge is totally confused. So once Holly walks into the trainer's room, you guys get up and walk over and be like, oh, he's just messing. He's just, so it took Turge a couple of days, weeks to kind of get used to Holly's humor, but that was Holly. He had a lot of fun with the guys.
He was great for everybody, and still is, and obviously there's legendary moments from the parade and there's the whole Stanley Cup run with Brett Hull. For you guys that have been around a while, what did that mean to you to have the Blues intertwine the alumni with the team as they approached winning the Stanley Cup a couple of years ago?
Well, it was fantastic, and every step of the way. First of all, we have the biggest alumni suite in the league, and there's probably 60 of us in the alumni suite for the final round games, and so that's how they treated us, food and beverage. So, as I mentioned when Shanahan started it, it's been that way pretty well the whole time. There's a few years, but more or less the whole time they've always included us in things. And then to include us in the parade was just spectacular. I mean, that was kind of above and beyond, really. And, everybody knows the story about Bobby Plager and how long it took for him to win the Stanley Cup and his emotions and going to visit Bark with the cup and, all that. But it was just to include the alumni was very special.
How about you,
I would agree. It was awesome, really, to be with the team every step of the way, and not just kind of an afterthought, being a part of it, to where you're talking to, Mr. Stillman, talking to Chappie and Z and all these guys, and they're very much, just as pumped up for the alumni as they are for their own team, specifically, of course, for a lot of the guys who are here for a long time, Bobby Plager, and all the guys, quite honestly, I don't know how you felt, BA, But when the Blues finally won it, and I remember being at Ballpark Village, Scott Warman's with me, we're about to do the post-game broadcast. It was like you're able to exhale a little bit. And I remember just looking out over the crowd where people are everywhere, never mind fire marshal at that night, and they're celebrating, and I was like, finally this city gets a championship. And I don't know if it was a burden that I carried, not just me, but maybe teams before, of not being able to deliver. And I'll speak for myself. In the 90s, we had some teams that should have at least gotten closer than we did, and we never did for whatever reason, whether it was an injury, Furzy's injury that one year that we lose to the Red Wings, whatever it was. So you carry that around a little bit.
Chopper says his biggest regret in hockey is not winning a Stanley Cup here.
Right. 100%. And you carry that around, and post-career, you walk around and people ask you all the time about the great teams you're on, or they talk about the team that could never get it done. And it wasn't about me or the team. It was about the people here who supported the team. So again, going back to that night where the Blues closed it out, it was like, I was like, finally. And then to be a part of the parade and see these people celebrating, and they're just as happy to see the old goats like us up there, like partying and stuff. That was amazing.
And I want you guys, go ahead, Bruce.
I was going to say, the other thing, to me at least, it got rid of the Monday Night Miracle.
Yeah,
as
right.
our best. We lost the series.
Yeah.
So the Monday Night
that's
Miracle.
the moment.
Right. So now we can say you got the Stanley Cup.
Yeah. But I think one of the coolest things about this town, and in a previous episode we talked to Barrett Jackman and Keith Kachuk, and it really is, St. Louis is the biggest small town in America, right? You go to a Walgreens, you go to a hair salon, you're going to run into somebody that you know, and it might be a Blues alumni, it might be a Hall of Famer, but it's one of the cool things about our town is that former players can go around here and not be swarmed, and everybody's friend.
Yeah, I don't go to a hair salon, by the way.
Your hair is magnificent.
I like that cut,
Jamie's
actually.
is
It's cheaper.
fantastic.
Yeah, that is part of the reason we talked about the alumni staying here, is that community feel and how you are treated by St. Louis itself. And that's why you have to give back because of that. And it's just an easy place to live, and people treat you nicely, and it's been fantastic.
Yeah, like the biggest thing that I can communicate to anybody is how much people are willing to help you. And we like Bruce said, we try to give back, right? And we try to donate our time, whether it's with the youth hockey, charities, events, whatever it is. We feel a sense of responsibility to be a part of it. But the same token, like if somebody needs something, or somebody's had a tragic event, or something happens and one of us needs, the community is right there ready to rally behind it too. And I played in a lot of places. We went over that. I played in a lot of cities. Didn't have that. Doesn't have that feel, doesn't have that kind of community relationship. So St. Louis is very unique in that way.
Thanks for taking the time. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
Pleasure, Randy.
Two of the great Blues alumni, Bruce Affleck, Jamie Rivers. You hear him every afternoon in the Fast Lane, by the way, on 101 ESPN. Thanks to our friends at the Train Shed. The food here is spectacular. You need to stop by. And obviously, when you get to a Blues game, you see these guys in the hall, you can stop by and shake their hand and say hi. That's Randy's Roundtable. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.